Hello, friends and anti-novelists. It's another beautiful day in the library, and what better to do than answer some questions? So, what we're looking at are some of the digital tools that I use in editing. I got a question. Dear V, can you tell us what digital tools do you use, or do you hate technology and only use analog? Great question. Ooh, thank you, Jeffrey. So, first digital tool is I use Scrivener. Okay, so you can see I've got Act 1, Act 2, Act 2, 3, Act 3, and Act 4. And my novel lives in Scrivener. But the caveat to that is, some of you may already know or recall, several months back, I lost my entire story when my laptop crashed and my removable backup crashed all in the same month. I lost a ton of work. So I don't trust digital tools alone. Every time I finish working on my manuscript, I back it up to both a removable hard drive and a thumb drive. Another thing that I have queued up here for you is I keep a digital copy of my novel. So if you look over here, you'll see this folder, 2/1924 compile. What you're looking at is every single chapter of my book, okay? And these are the chapters, the files that I printed out that went to live in my big fat monster binder, okay? So that's where those came from. As soon as I got all of those loaded in, all 90 chapters, I exported those into my digital removable drive and also put them on a thumb drive just because I'm paranoid after having lost everything. That really stunk, by the way. I don't recommend it. The next tool that I use that is digital is I treated myself and I got a Kindle Scribe. So what I do is after I got this compilation finished and I had all of my chapters in one big fat file, I just combined them all together. It was, I don't know, about 300 pages long. I uploaded those to my Kindle. So that's this proof copy right here. So if I click on that, bada boom, there is my novel in digital form. So I can just go in, like if I'm laying in bed as I go to sleep, reading a few chapters for continuity, it allows me to just click and I can add a little note. A note box pops up and boom, I can add my notes on that chapter and I just exit out of it. And then in my manuscript, in my Kindle, I have that little note that I've just made. So this is a super handy, simple way, lo-fi. I can't do anything fancy. It's just simple edits and making notes so that I can talk to myself within the context of my story. So those are my primary digital tools. My laptop and my files using Scrivener, and all of my backups, and then using Kindle as another way to visualize and go through my story in an ebook format as opposed to looking at the printed out hard copy. So let's look at a couple of other things. You've already met my portable accordion file. Every time, let's say I make a note in my Kindle and I say, ooh, I need to research this thing because I don't have enough information about it. I'm going to pop a little note into my note card accordion file. This is for research items. So I can just go look up that thing. I've got my note reminding me to do it. And then I can fill that piece in my novel. So in terms of continuity, these work together as tools to make sure that I'm answering those questions that I've set for myself. Once these little research tasks are completed, then they get a number, they go in my index, and they get stuck over behind me in my Zettelkasten. So that's how the environment functions together. If I'm working on a particular chapter, like let's say I'm working on the continuity for chapter 32, I need to add an opening quote and I need to add that scene where my main characters take a walk together and end up over at another character's where they're going to discover something. Well, maybe I'm pulling out my research or my ideas that I had for that scene, and I'm just going to put them here in my little card deck. This is actually, it's meant for playing card games, but I love it so much because I can just slot cards in here for things that I'm working on, things that I want to remember. I can move them around, but it keeps my tools in front of me for the cards that I'm working on and that I might need as I'm typing up those scenes. Finally, I just got this. This is a new notebook. I absolutely adore it. And I've already set it up for my notes. So let's look at this one. Note, I have blanked out the things I don't want you to see. No spoilers allowed. But as I got ready to start my continuity edit, I just went through Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. And I started making myself high-level notes in the 4 acts of things that I want to work through. So these pages will flow. This cell will always be Act 1, and as I turn the subsequent pages, that's where those notes will go all the way through. Act 2, top half, Act 3, bottom 3/4, Act 4 goes across. So those will continue throughout the journal as I make handwritten notes. And then I can also add specific handwritten chapters as I'm reminding myself of things that I need to do, things I need to look up, what have you. No spoilers there. I can just write to myself in longhand because I do prefer, in the early stages especially, writing longhand because it helps lock that story into my brain. My final analog tool is, of course, my big notes folder. This is at the beginning of the project where all of the notes that I still have not installed in my Zettelkasten, but are just notes to myself about various parts of either continuity, developing the story, things I might want to include or explore, etc. Those notes all live in my Yellowstone folder. So I will start going through these. I will decide, do they need to be a research task? It's something I want to look up further. Do they need to be put into my plot journal so that I can flesh those ideas out, maybe sketch them out on the page and draft it out before I start typing it out into Scrivener? How do I want to workflow that? So that's how the notes folder works. Then I've got my blank note cards live in this groovy little thing. And of course, I wouldn't be me if I didn't say a quick word about pens. Holy moly, guys. I have loved Flair pens my whole life. This is your standard Flair pen, right? Love them, love them, love them. However, I recently discovered they now come in dual tip. So in addition to your basic Flair line, now you've got a dual tip, a brush tip, right? So as I go in and I'm doing those editor's marks, those little bits of editing, what have you, now I've got my color coding locked in and I can do that. Of course, I also wouldn't be me without my washi, because as you know, I love to punctuate my pages, often with a gold edge, like this one I've highlighted in green because green is the color for my book overall. So yeah, gotta have some washi just because I like my pages to be pretty. So that's just me. So that answers the question of some of the other tools that I use in order to move back and forth between the digital to the analog and how those things work in my environment. So thanks again, Jeffrey, for the question. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next video when we talk about line edits. So take care. See you soon.